Hi everybody. I just want to say thanks for tuning in last night. I know that was a really short kind of introduction, but I figured we might as well get the word out before we start officially doing anything. I'm going to tonight talk about the first part of the blog post that I put up in the spring. And again, as I said last night, the series is entitled Bumps in the Night. It is a chronological series about me and my experiences in paranormal investigations, as well as how it all got started and different things like that. So I guess the best way to start is to kind of give you a background on me, so that you know that I'm not completely insane. I am educated. I of course completed high school. I went to college. I have a bachelor's degree in social sciences, and I minored in psychology and anthropology. And I also have a master's degree in forensic psychology. So it's not like I don't understand the soft sciences and different things like that, but I do believe in things that you can't see and that you can't explain. So I'm not a complete educated idiot, as some people would like to say about people that have too much education. I have a career outside of the home, a very, very solid career where I deal in a lot of facts and absolutes every single day. So I know the difference between reality and fantasy. So that's not an issue either, although I do know some people that can't tell you the difference between those two things. I happen to not be one of those people. And my husband is smirking behind the camera again. So he obviously thinks that I'm a mental case, but stop it. Anyway, what I'm going to talk about this evening is my very first childhood home, which is in a very small town in the southern portion of Ohio. And I grew up in a house that the deed was, on the date of the deed was completely unknown. So, sorry about that. Phone calls. Anyway, so basically, nobody really knew when the house was built. I remember having a lot of trouble sleeping. In fact, it terrified me to go to sleep. I hated the dark, probably more so than some kids. It scared me. I had anxiety attacks about going to sleep. And looking back on it now, I understand why. But at the time, of course, you're a child and you just know that you don't like the dark and you don't want to go to sleep and you want help, but you don't know how to get it. The first thing that I remember about that house, my room was in the back of the house, and it was a very large room, and there were trundle beds and two closets on the opposite sides of the walls. And my bed was on the left side of the wall walking into the room. And at the end of my bed was a closet. And I hated that closet. I knew not to go near that closet. It creeped me out. And I didn't want anything to do with like that portion of the room. So I remember one night I woke up, and I think you have to keep in mind that children use association to describe their experiences no matter what they are. So if you're taught that this is an airplane and you see something silver flying in the air, as a child you're automatically going to say that's an airplane, even if it's not, even if it's something different. I know when I studied anthropology, there were a lot of uncivilized, and I hate to use that word, but they were not civilized, they were tribes. And when anthropologists would go there to study their tribal culture, they would talk about these silver gods. And there was one instance where a plane flew over the island where the anthropologists were, and the tribal people like hit their face and started worshiping and all these other things. And when they asked them why they did that, it was the example that I just used. That was a silver god. That's what they associated an airplane with. And I say that because as a child, I associated what I saw with a witch. To me, she looked like a witch. She was not very pretty. She was older, and her features were very pale, and she had sunken in features, and she scared me. And she never said anything to me. She never approached me. She never made me, she scared me, but she never threatened me. And of course, as adults looking into a child's mind, they think, well, that's just overactive imagination and you're dreaming. And I know specifically that I was not dreaming. I was wide awake, and I saw her more than once, but she never approached me. I also saw her in my dreams, and I don't know if that's because she had access to them or because I was just afraid of her. But that was the first thing that I remember about that house. I also have come to understand that a lot of the things that happen in the spirit realm are communicated to you through dreams. And I had very vivid dreams. It seemed like I dreamt all the time. But there was one dream in particular, and again, I was a child, so I associated with something that I knew. And what I saw in my dreams was what I called, and what I talked about with my friends, was they were no-eyed rabbits. That's what I saw. And they were standing around a fire, and they had dark clothing on, and they were completely white. And they had what I thought then to look like onions that had been split in half, and I could see that's what their eyes looked like. And they had what I thought were rabbit ears, and now that I look back on it, they were not rabbit ears. They were something different. And I'm not going to, in this episode, expound on my beliefs between heaven and hell, but I sincerely believe that they were demonic in nature. Sometimes they would chase me, sometimes they would throw me into the fire, sometimes they would just torture me and torment me, and I would wake up absolutely terrified, screaming, not being able to understand what had happened. And then you try to explain that to your parents and they don't understand what's happening. It's just bad dreams. But looking back on it now, it was more than that. To me it was, but it was significant to that house. I knew not to go in the basement. The basement made me feel, it creeped me out too. The upstairs was okay. My room was fine in the daylight. The family room, everything else was fine, but I knew not to go near the basement. I went down there once or twice, I think, with my dad, and I knew not to go back. I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. It was light. It was not dark. But it was one of those feelings where you knew that you were not welcome in that area of the house. I was also sick a lot as a kid. I ended up having 3 ear surgeries. I was constantly ill. And I would wake up from these horrible dreams, which of course doctors attribute that to high fever. But I was always sick. And nobody ever really had an explanation. So it was either Munchausen's by proxy, or there was something going on in the house to cause illness. And I know a lot of people don't believe that, but I do. I do believe that if there are spiritual attachments inside a structure, that they can affect everyday life, including health. When we eventually moved, The nightmares ended, the experiences ended, and my illnesses stopped. I don't think that's coincidence looking back on it now. I believe that there were significant spiritual things going on in that house. I remember once that my mother told me that she heard her voice audibly called to her. No, I'm sorry. She was spoken to, but it wasn't her voice. It was something different. But she attributed that to going to see a card reader. Now that I'm older, I don't believe that that was what was going on. I believe the house was haunted. Yeah, it could have been demonic in nature. I don't know, but a friend of mine's mother and father bought that house after we moved out, and ironically, the back of the house caught on fire, and it burned up the back of the house as well as my bedroom. So, yeah, it probably was electrical, but now that I'm older and understand things, I do understand that entities can be very powerful. Hi again. We ran out of SD space, so we had to take a break and change cameras, and actually it's the same camera, but anyway, I was going to actually conclude this evening's episode anyway, because I've basically told you everything there is as a starting point from my childhood. To kind of give you an idea of where we're going with the next episode, we're going to fast forward to the age of 19. So we'll start with that with our next, the next time we meet. Thanks for watching and being curious. And the one thing that I will ask you to do in every single time that you watch this is to keep an open mind. I think that's the thing that I found most disturbing, is how close-minded people can be to the paranormal, to possibilities, to anything. Anything is possible. Anything. That's not limited to what we can see and understand. So keep an open mind when you watch this, and I'll apologize in advance if I offend anyone or if my belief system doesn't line up with yours. That's okay, because we're supposed to accept each other for who we are and not judge. So I'll ask you not to judge me when you watch these. Not that you are, but I feel that's very important, because I've met a lot of people that don't practice that. So in saying that, I would like you to, if you would, you can check out my website. It's Tracee, Tracee, Ford, Ford.com. And as I said, this is actually an archived blog that we're talking about currently, and my blog address is traceeford.wordpress.com. Since you're watching this on YouTube, all of those links are on my YouTube page or on my YouTube channel. And if you have anything, any subjects that you would like to talk about in the future, because hopefully I will be able to continue doing this, not only talk about things that I've experienced, but kind of answer any questions that you might have as either a reader or a viewer or a follower or a fan or whatever the case may be, because I'd really like to start doing this consistently. But I wanted to launch with the 10 episodes of kind of the autobiographical look at me and why I do the things that I do and how I became who I am and why I believe the things that I do. So again, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Love and light to you, and again, I welcome feedback. So if there's any feedback that you'd like to leave, please do so. However, I ask that you keep it clean. Constructive criticism is welcomed, but blunt bashing will not be welcomed. So have a great day, evening, wherever you are in this world. Make it a good one. Thanks.